there's a couple changes in the program, so this is what I announced, you know where we are. So the next number is going to be Pentland Hills. That was a British march, and I can kind of remember Paul explaining the difference between a regular march and a British march, and he was talking about how we should all play like we were in the Queen's Guard. And Paul had many what I call Stortiisms, and I think the band will remember. One thing he used to always say is, he'd say to the band, I want you to play schmaltzy, or play with schmaltz. I'm not exactly sure what that meant, but we kind of got the idea. He always said, if you're going to play a bad note, make it a good one. And he also, when he was talking to the drummers on a gong or a chime, he'd always say, hit it. If you break it, I'll buy you a new one. Mark's going to talk a little bit, our spiritual player.
Hi, I'm Mark Olson. I played for Paul. I graduated in '75. I played for him for 3 years. And my first memory of Paul is actually as, I believe I was a first grader, and my aunt lived with us, and her friend Lori St. George came over, thrilled to death because she had just made lead album with Paul's band. And from that point on, I remember about Paul, and this is from May 23rd, 1968, is the first concert I played with Paul. I wasn't being directed by him, I was being directed by Don Paul. It was an all-district concert that they'd have everyone from the elementary schools to the senior high bands play in one single concert. And in this program, Pentland Hills is being played by the junior high band. That's how good his bands were. We're going to play it next year. And this is a junior high band team. We're Monty Budall. And that was at Open Junior High. Was playing that in 1968. But one of the things about Paul's concerts that we don't really have here that I believe is a standard thing in Paul's concerts was he always had soloists or duet or trio or whatever, but he always featured his students individually in concerts. And here's the all-district concert, and he's playing clarinet candy with a quartet of clarinet players for the whole district. So that was one of the things we don't really pick up on here. But to continue on with my nervousness with Paul, 9th grade, we're being built up to tryouts for Paul's band. Back in those days, there were 3 high school bands, and they were each about 75. This was at Park, 75 people in every band. And it's kind of like making varsity football team. As a 9th grader, you had to try out for the varsity band to see if you could make the band with all the seniors. And it was really a tough thing. And Mr. Krebsbach was my teacher at the time, and he really built it up. So it was really a nerve-wracking experience. But I sat there with Paul, and he didn't smack my leg that many times. And I was in. So I made a band as a 10th grader. And one thing about Paul, people say he's mean or whatever, and I never really thought he was mean. I heard all the stories about the girls coming out of their lessons crying and stuff like that, but I never cried. But he was a very direct person, like my mom. So we got along fine. He told you what he wanted to do, and that's what he did. And I was I was a converted trumpet player, so I played treble clef. And as a 10th grader, I'm sitting in there practicing, which he liked. I practiced a lot, and he just came up to me and said, nobody plays first chair in my band as a euphonium player unless you play bass clef. And he stuck the music in front of me and said, this is what you're playing. And to this day, I read bass clef or treble clef. I don't even know the notes in bass clef. I never learned it, but I can play the music. I just read it. I don't know how that works. I don't really know it. I can play it, but he told me to play it. It went on from there. One of the best things that ever happened to me in music was because of Paul. He, as a euphonium player, it's a nice instrument that works well in a concert band, but you don't really see it a whole lot out of a concert band, maybe in churches once in a while, I don't know. But as a 10th grader, he came up to me and he sat this big Connie Yates almost a bass trombone, but it was a big horn, big trombone. He sat there next to me and said, you're playing bass trombone in the jazz band on Thursday. You show up at 7 o'clock. I didn't even know how to play it. I said, I don't know how to play it. He said, well, bring it to your lesson this week. And on that Thursday following, I was a bass trombone player. And I lasted for 3 years. And since then, I do most of my playing on trombone, playing in big bands, and playing with such notable trombonists as Mr. Craig Radigan sitting in the back there. And I played for Sally Struthers. I like to drop the names. Everybody. I played with the lead trombone player in the Minnesota Orchestra just a couple of weeks ago, and it's really Paul who gave me these opportunities, because I do not believe I'd ever have picked up the trombone if it wasn't for Paul Storti, and I thank him for that.